or you think that there is some serious risk brewing?
Trump, tariff, and the resultant trauma.
Our HNIs are also a little bit jittery about investing at this point of time.
I definitely do not see any sign of panic.
How do you navigate risk adjusted return?
So obviously, we are also working with Kotak Alternates in terms of being able to bring some of those products to our clients.
This year, 2025, as per the Chinese calendar, is actually the year of the snake. And the year of the snake means you will have some hissing, some stings here and there. So I'm saying, that is going to be the big bhool bhulaiya that the investor has to navigate in 2025.
Hi, welcome to Kotak Alt Waves, the podcast where we navigate the fascinating world of investments. I'm Jitendra Gohil. I'm the Chief Investment Strategist at Kotak Alternate Assets. And we have with us Saurabh Jain, who is the head and MD of Wealth Management Division of Standard Chartered. We also have with us Lakshmi Iyer, CEO Investments at Kotak Alt. In today's episode, we'll navigate market ka bhulbulaiya. We have seen US exceptionalism, where US accounted for almost 71% of MSCI market cap, and now we are seeing that US dollar has started to retreat. On the other hand, if I look at the year-to-date returns, Europe index and Chinese index have taken the lead with 10 to 15% growth, while US index is down almost 2 to 3% from its peak. On the other hand, where Indian equity markets saw phenomenal returns since COVID days, now we have started to see major correction happening in the mid and small cap. So, in this complete turmoil kind of market sentiment, where every asset class is behaving very differently compared to in the past, all the fundamentals are now shifting grounds. In that perspective, I'm going to bring you some kind of very insightful discussion with two of the most known industry leaders. So, Lakshmi, starting with you, do you think that these kind of market turmoil that we have seen in the past, this time it is something different, or you feel that one should look at these kind of selling that we have seen in Indian equities is kind of a natural, and we will see some kind of a bounce in the near term, or you think that there is some serious risk brewing in the global asset class and asset market?
Hi, Jeet. So, firstly, before talking about the markets, I think it's very important to understand what has been the trigger for these markets. And there it is three T's that come to mind, which is Trump, tariff, and the resultant trauma. So the trauma is the after effect that you're actually seeing in the markets right now. And if you look at every asset class, it is in what could I say, andaz apna apna mode, because every market or every asset class is very behaving very very differently depending on what is your counterparty relationship with America. And I think that is a single most centrifugal force right now, which not only just asset classes are dealing with, but the geographical different countries are dealing with, including Asia and rest of rest of the world. um, Now, to come to your question, are we more is this more like stopgap, or is it slightly more long term in nature? Well, the answer lies somewhere in between. uh, how long are we going to be a recipient of you know the constant tariff fear? And in that context, how are you going to, I'll bring the fourth T over here, how long are you going to be able to thrive in this chaos and crisis? I think that is going to be the first and foremost. And there, I think India is slightly more resilient compared to the rest of the globe. We have a vibrant um, economic landscape, which obviously is impacted because of the world not growing as much. So I think that Agni Pariksha phase is something which we have to live with right now. So if I break this down into probably near to medium term and slightly medium to long term, um, I would say future is always bright. But in that future is always bright, do we have to go through some bit of Samudra Manthan, as I call it, in the near to medium term? The answer is yes. And also, we need to remember, Jeet, we're in 2025. In 2024, it was a Dhoom Barabar Dhoom year. Like, everywhere Dhoom macha hua tha. So, from the Dhoom to the Dhund is like a foggy situation. So, from Dhoom everywhere to Dhund, I think that journey is something which will, that's why I call it the Samudra Manthan, or Samudra Manthan mein wish bhi nikalta hai. But who is a Neelkant who is going to absorb the wish? I think that we need to wait and watch.
So Neelkants earlier used to be the retail investors who have been pouring in money in the equity markets. The fear is right now is that FIs were selling, right? And retail investors were opening accounts and they were investing heavily into the market. And now the fear is that because there's a huge correction that is seen in small and mid cap space, some of the retail investors now would not invest to the extent they have been investing. And that leg of the market is looking weak. However, what's your perspective, Saurabh? Our HNIs are also a little bit jittery about investing at this point of time, or they are saying, okay, 15% correction in Nifty and 20-30% correction in small and mid caps. This is a great buying opportunity. How you are addressing this dilemma, whether to jump in right now or wait for this dust to settle?
So, uh, Jitendra, thank you very much for having me. And the way we see it, so obviously a lot of our clients are seasoned investors. They have participated in different market cycles, and most of them have seen at least 2-3 cycles from the GFC onwards, right? So, given that and over long periods of time, markets have given good returns, and equity markets in particular in India have done very well as an asset class. I definitely do not see any sign of panic. We've not really seen flows, which are net outflows from an investor perspective. Obviously, clients who are seasoned and who are building a financial portfolio over a period of time, they will from time to time they will review the market conditions. They will look at the macro. They will look at the corporate earnings. They will look at their own asset allocation and then determine, depending on what the market trends are and obviously what our house views are as well. We will engage with clients, and like the way both you and Lakshmi spoke, right? So we share our views with the clients, but I haven't really seen, there is of course money on the sidelines. So clients have actually not really committed capital over a period of time, because as Lakshmi said, there is also a lot of ambiguity around what is going to happen. And there is a lot that Trump is trying to do, and the dust is not settled on that. So in that context, obviously clients have been on the sidelines, invested a little bit of money. But from a if you to break it into two parts, one, we see from a market perspective, we definitely see the last few months and the trigger of the outflows as like a cyclical slowdown, both from a macro perspective and a corporate earnings perspective. So if you see H1 of the current financial year, GDP growth slowed down, series of things there, but we are seeing a lot of positivity around that. We saw a very good budget, which should be positive for consumption for the economy. We are seeing the RBI rate cut. In fact, beginning of the year, our view was RBI will do a rate cut in the first quarter. That's come through. So a lot of positives we are seeing there. We expect the GDP growth to be in line with long term trend and be back at 6.5 in the coming 12 months. With that, and again on the corporate earnings side, after 4 very strong years of corporate earnings, we saw very weak corporate earnings in the first 6 months, and then again the last quarter as well. So between 4 and 8%. In the first half of the year, it was 4%. Last quarter was about 8%. So obviously, both of this, and the third thing was the overhang was also obviously a lot of global geopolitical uncertainty, largely around US and Trump policies. That was enough trigger for FPIs, etc. But if you were to look back at investors, right, we still get very strong, domestic inflows in India. And we see, like, just to give an example, I think a good proxy that people use is the systematic investment plan book, the SIP book. That's held on very sticky. right? Last year, Feb, I think was about 19,000. I think we are at about 23,000 crores in a
25, I guess. Now we are reaching almost 25,000.
So
Yeah.
I think we have seen stability there. And also, if you look at the overall context, obviously within this we have investors who have not really seen 15, 20 years, 25 year cycles. Investors who have come in the last 4, 5 years. But if you see overall in terms of asset allocation, India still has only about 5% in equities. So I think there is a long way to go. Or even financial assets, the percentage is not that high. Obviously, there are, as Lakshmi also mentioned earlier, in any such difficult period, there are excesses that get built in the system and they get taken out. So a lot of the, speculative activity will get taken out, and possibly rightly so. And that will be helpful for investors over a period of time. But from a view perspective, we are overweight equities, and we can always cover why.
Sort of what I have seen is if I look at India's total, GDP and the market cap, right? So today India is almost closer to $4 trillion, right? And the depth and breadth of market is improving. So definitely you will see these kind of bouts of buying and selling, because as you see more and more options comes out, right? So there was a huge supply of paper which came in. IPOs, Fenzi and QIPs came out. Promoters started selling equities. And now we are seeing that the flows into equities might get impacted because the year-on-year returns has started to fall negative. So is there a fear, Lakshmi, that this might lead to slowdown in SIP, or you think that one should really look at other asset classes? Just equity probably will not work going ahead. Or looking at US now, the probability of recession again started moving up. Recent data points suggest. Do you think that it makes sense to look at other asset classes and try to diversify the risk, and be little bit less risk covers in this, a little bit more risk covers in this kind of environment?
Yeah, so two parts to your question, Jeet. I would say that equity in retail investors, I'm talking about very grassroots retail, which make up this SIP momentum or evolution, as you call it, are very low ticket investors. Average ticket size is just about 5,000 rupees or so, or even lower than that. And minimum SIP amount is like just $500 or even $250 if you want to start with. So now their behavior is very distinctly different from, because there are a lot of new investors. Um, COVID born investors, I would say, by age, obviously much older, but COVID born investors who got initiated into investments. So, those kind of investors are also making up this cohort. Now, they have never seen a bear market. They've always caught the bull by the horns, as they call it, and therefore the market by the horns. So, I think they have never seen a dull moment. So, there you could see some disappointment because that's all they have to spare. But if you go up the curve, the investor curve, then that is where I think that there is reasonable amount of investor maturity who do reasonably exotic stuff, and to that extent, they probably may or may not be part of the active SIP cohort also, and because they are lump sum investors. So as SIP money is coming in, there are lump sum monies also which are getting pumped into mutual funds, and it takes two to tango. So I think one segment probably disappointing a little bit on the inflows or the incremental inflows could kind of get compensated by the new breed of investors who come value, I would say, value picking or bottom fishing, as you call it. Though I don't know where the bottom is, but nevertheless, so I think that's one part of the liquidity or the momentum. On your second part, I think it is not about either or with respect to equities. It is not the English or, it is the Hindi wala or. It is एक म्यान में दो तलवार रह सकती है. इनफैक्ट आई वुड से मल्टीपल तलवारों का रहना बहुत जरूरी है, बिकॉज you cannot genuinely expect everything to be created only out of equities or for that matter any other asset class. So where and you rightly alluded to the recession probability is increasing, for example, fixed income is a great bet in this market also. Not that interest rates are going to crash from the current levels, but it is very difficult to expect interest rates to shoot up materially in a recessionary look and feel environment in the US, I'm talking about. So I think those complementing asset classes, and for the slightly more evolved investors, that is when you look at um, variants of the equity and the fixed income categories, which could be, high yielding credit funds, or in equities, it could be unlisted equities, which is the private equity space across, just before the, ahead of IPO. So late stage growth companies, need not necessarily invest in startups. So I think that entire ecosystem, and mind you, there is enough dry powder available in the private equity space, but there also valuations are gradually inching up. So I think mindfully, if you make an entry point at a time where there are less chasers for assets, I think that is where the true value creation in your entire wealth creation journey actually starts unlocking.
Wow. So, do you think that investors have started to look at even international equities as
So international, I would say, uh, is something which investors always had from a diversification of your geography perspective and some bit of a currency hedge. That's something investors always were looking at. So it's two-way process. Externally or outside of India, investors, like, quite a few of our LPs, for example, are looking for diversification outside of the US. So obviously they want India as a spoke. Likewise, if you look at Indian investors, especially large institutions and also select large family offices, they are actually looking at diversification outside of India, because they might be having some business, and in outside of India they have kids doing their education outside of India, or yeah, plain Jane, it's a pure rupee diversifier.
Jitendra, maybe I'll just add to what Lakshmi was saying, right? So she made a point on, fixed income definitely deserves a place in the overall portfolio. And I totally echo that. So give you a broad sense on, let's say, this decade over last decade. So our view has been that this is a decade where we will have higher interest rates and higher inflation vis-a-vis the last decade. In that environment, our view is basically we are advising clients, or I'm advising clients on what we call a gap strategy. So gearing up for risk in the portfolio, the idea is that if in a high interest rate, high inflation environment, if you want to protect your real return on your investment, you need to be in asset classes which can give you that. So equity definitely is one asset class, and there are some other asset classes which Lakshmi spoke of. So that's the gearing up the risk in the portfolio. Then obviously the alternates part in terms of the hedge in the portfolio, multi-asset diversification. So that's one thing that we are looking at. And the last one is the protecting the yield. So so we clearly, bullish on duration from a fixed income perspective. We also like corporate bonds. We believe the spread is favorable, and we also believe that the accrual is good, as well as the fact that, with a 12-month view, or obviously some of this is not really, when you do these kind of plays like a duration, you can't do a all weather decadal call, right? But then you have to do it tactically depending on what your view on at that point
sort
in
of
time
here
is.
one point, if I look at how India's inflation behaves, right? So it's a very different phase we are living in right now, where Indian inflation is under control.
Yes.
Otherwise, we have seen whenever India clocks 6.5, 7, 8% GDP, in the past, that we have seen in the past 3, 4 years, we have been clocking 7% kind of a growth. We see inflation generally inches up, and in that bargain, if you want to beat inflation, you get to look at higher risk, which is nothing but equity investments. But now we are in a phase where actually inflation is under, very much under control,
Yeah.
I would say. In that bargain, I think now the fixed income looks decent, because
Yeah.
now your expectations to beat that 5.5% inflation is reasonably okay if you invest in bond markets,
You have real
compared to
return.
in the past, where you need to have 10% plus return in order to beat inflation. Now that threshold is
Absolutely.
lowered.
But no, you make a very good point. But that's been there for years, if you see. Series of governors have acted in a very prudent way, and there's always been real return over the last several years. Of course, there were prior decades where, what you said was true. It played out that way. And also, if you see from COVID onwards, and very interestingly, I work for an international organization, and we've seen post-COVID, inflation is something that, different parts of the bank that I work with globally, even from an employee side, the bank was very cognizant of, right? Because suddenly, but to us as Indians, we always knew what inflation is. We have experienced that growing up, 90s, 2000s, and of course, things look much better now in terms of the way the central bank has managed that, and done targeting on the inflation targeting, and there have been positive real return, but we've not done a very dramatic welfare spending with COVID and post. The quality of spending has really improved as well, and I think there has been a tremendous fiscal responsibility. So as a result of all of that, we've not faced the challenges of inflation like other countries have.
Mm. So coming to inflation and asset return expectations, one thing which is dramatically changed in the past few years is US interest rates. Now US itself is what it gives you a 4.5%, 4.5% yields on 10 year, and even Europe has started to now discuss. They started to spend more, and today German yield has gone up almost 40 basis point in the past few days.
Yeah.
In that bargain, where you see emerging market yields moving, and if that is the case, India is, I think, 6.5% kind of a yield that we expect in the next one and a half years. We see that completely. The economics of yields have changed, where US, Europe has seen significant spike in yields, while Indian yields have remained well anchored.
Yeah.
So, do you think that this is going to remain, or do you think fundamentals are in place to see yields anchored at this point, or you think that once the developed market yield starts to shoot up, especially in Europe or in Japan or any other market, then Indian yields are also going to shoot up from here onwards?
See, a lot of yields movement, for example, to some extent also has been a function of what kind of demand supply, mismatch or demand supply pairing happens, for example, in India. Um, Unlike the rest of the world, where, for example, US also runs a huge fiscal deficit, it is the foreigners who are funding their fiscal deficit. In case of India, it's Indian institutions, aka the banks, because we're the only country where we have such a tall percentage of SLR, where we have to mandatorily keep that amount in GSEC. That is part of the portfolio. Now, just imagine if the government of India is going to crowd out for this source of funds, and there is corporate India which is going to crowd out for this, then what happens to the yields? They have to go up. Fortunately, we are not in that phase right now. Let me bring in the third angle, which kind of covers the Triveni Sangam for you, is the FPI demand. Now, with index inclusion in quite a few of these prominent indices, there has become a natural magnetic pull towards Government of India bonds. At a time we are seeing there is this massive, I call this the have you seen the movie Thugs of Hindustan? उसमें एक वो ये है कैरेक्टर है फिरंगी मल्ला. So these FPIs are like the फिरंगी mallas. At the first sight of trouble, obviously they want to exit the country because they're asset allocators or geographical allocators. Even at that point in time, Indian fixed income has still seen flows positive, marginally negative in a couple of months, but by and large positive. Now, that has got nothing to do with the yield differential. Because if you look at Indian yields at, say, the benchmark is just about 6.7 odd percent, the US yield is at 4.2%. Now, if you look at the Indian rupee, which is having a depreciating bias, that is what it's likely to be. That interest rate differential, which means cost of covering the rupee 1 year forward, is roughly around 3%. Now, if you remove that 3% from that 6.7, what are you left with? 4.7. Now, is 50 basis points a good gap for you to own Indian bonds over US bonds for a foreigner? Well, the answer is no. So therefore, the ask has to go up quite dramatically. It is just because, and also let's keep in mind, Jeet, that Indian yields today are also getting supported by the central bank's action. They are doing constant bond purchases, and that is also one of the reasons why it is getting anchored. So I think for a durable and a sustained foreign interest, the yields will have to inch up, which in this kind of a scenario looks very, very difficult. But are we expecting a sustain like a crash in interest rates? That's also very, very difficult. So I think we are going to be anchored around, like as you rightly alluded to, even in the past, we are going to be reasonably anchored, and with inflation expectations just around where the RBI wants it to be. I think major spike ups from the current levels will actually be bought into. But I think the durability of the money is where I have a bigger question mark. Imagine if this index inclusion weren't there. Would there be the kind of money that we are getting? Probably not. So I think we are right now doing the multiple ball, kind of juggling act. And but yeah, I think you require that combination of factors to come in to ensure that the yields remain at the current levels. And yeah, of course, the Brahmastra for any yield show is the rate actions by the central banker, which except for Japan, I think pretty much every central banker, including India, is actually cutting rates.
Great, great. So in that bargain, Saurabh, do you think that it makes sense to, look at diversification into, let's say, gold or let's say in fixed income, equity, and some other asset classes? How do you navigate risk-adjusted return?
So, I think to your point, global diversification, maybe I'll start with that. Global diversification definitely as a principle is something that, is recommended because a lot of us have suffered from a single country bias. 97, 98% of the, wealth in a lot of clients that you see is India and Indian assets. Forget the asset class, there is also a geographical diversification that is there. And I was just reading, there is I think recently the UBS annual yearbook got published. So over 125-year-old history as well. Some of these principles will always hold you in good stead. Right now, coming to the equity, fixed income, gold, that kind of a diversification, definitely recommended to have different asset classes in your portfolio overall in terms of asset allocation. My view historically also has been that asset allocation drive is a far greater driver of your return than security selection. Unfortunately, I think a lot more time and discussion happens on security selection and not as much on asset allocation. It's difficult. It's boring as well, right? So it's not as exciting. But I think over a period of time, if you can clearly define what the purpose of your money is. So we use a framework called Today, Tomorrow, Forever framework, right? So what you need, in the shorter time horizon, obviously you can't have in riskier asset classes or asset classes that can have drawdowns or volatility like equity. So clearly cash, bonds, those are asset classes that you look at. You look at obviously equity as a large part of your core holding, which is your growth portfolio, right? And then you also gold, we in fact globally we've had an overweight on gold whole of last year and even now. But from a country perspective, what we also feel is that obviously in our case, there are other things that you need to add in terms of to arrive at the investable asset class of gold. But gold, we definitely believe is a hedge in the portfolio. That's the purpose it serves. So between 5 to 10% of a portfolio could be in gold as a hedge. And multi-asset, private assets, depending on, like Lakshmi said earlier, depending on the kind of opportunities you see, and also a lot of these alternative assets, which are truly alternative because they are private, so they have a longer holding period in your portfolio. You can't really, it's not publicly listed, so you need to be comfortable with the fact that you will have illiquidity in your portfolio. The price that you are paying is liquidity, but in return you obviously will demand a higher return. And if for that to happen, you need to also have at an overall asset allocation perspective, how much of your portfolio can be illiquid. So those are obviously principles that you look at when you construct, an asset allocation, but we definitely recommend. So obviously we are also working with Kotak Alternates in terms of being able to bring some of those products to our clients because we clearly see demand in that as well. To go back to your question, just to summarize, yes, definitely it makes sense to have both global and asset class diversification in portfolios.
And Jeet, let's not forget, I think, this year, 2025, as per the Chinese calendar, is actually the year of the snake. And the year of the snake means you'll have some hissing, some stings here and there. It's going to be a lot more of patient capital that needs to be deployed irrespective of the asset class. That's going to be a non-negotiable. I think all the tigers have gone hiding into their den now.
Yeah. Okay, so from macro perspective, I think we are okay. From domestic macro, we are looking pretty solid. The volatility probably may come in from the global factors. What happens between US, Europe, US, China, how China deals with its macro slowdown, and then India will be a taker of those all volatility. But net, if I summarize the kind of return expectations investors are building right now, probably equity market around 11-12%, lower double digit kind of return over the next 2 years, 3 years. Fixed income probably 7-8% pre-tax. Looking at yields going down, and currently the yields are around 6.5% on the 10-year. And you said that you are going for a long duration bonds. So probably 7-8% return one can expect. Diversification is the key. I think this is how you can measure the volatility, or you can lower the volatility in your portfolio. But any concluding remarks you want to make, if one has to invest from 3-year perspective, what's your suggestion how one should go ahead?
Yeah, thanks, Jitendra. So, firstly, this clearly of the view that structurally we are in a very strong economy. So that's something that you mentioned. From a what we like, or where we are recommending, or what I would recommend, as themes or sectors or ideas to invest in. So clearly within equities, large cap equities is something we like, and I also believe that this is not a broad buy the market. This is not that kind of a market where you just buy the market. So small cap also is something that we like and we are overweight on, but from a stock to stock perspective. So you create a diversified portfolio there. In terms of themes, particularly or sectors, financials is something we like. We believe the valuations are reasonable, the earnings are very much there, and we feel that is an area where there is good risk return trade off. There's good margin of safety. That's one thing we like. We also like consumer discretionary. Is an area which we are constructive on. Uh, the third area which we like in terms of which is more a defensive play, but we feel that in the geopolitical environment that we are in today, it could be a good idea to be in, which is IT, and we like that over other sectors or themes like, let's say, a pharma. And so these are broadly on the equity side, and in fixed income, I already shared with you the view is to play between, let's say, a 7 to 12 or 7 to 14 year fixed income. Return expectations, yes, should be more moderate. So about 12% in equities, about 7.5-8% pre-tax in fixed income. And then you augment it through different other multi-asset, private asset, take maybe like Lakshmi said, take a little bit more risk in fixed income where you need to go for higher yield and so on.
Hmm. And Lakshmi, any specific idea you want to discuss in the private equity space, or any alternate investments that you can think of?
No, not really, Jeet. I'd say it's not about private equity. There's no idea as such. We like the healthcare, sector, though. Overall, we like the pharma space, even the listed space. There are obviously pockets of overvaluation that has clearly happened, but in the unlisted space, there are opportunities which are available in, both in clinical and commercial. There are opportunities available which you can pick and choose. But on a broader narrative, I would say the investor agility uh, to navigate through all of this, whether it's listed markets, whether it's private markets, or mid cap, large cap, that is going to be put to test this year. So I think that is the key buzzword, because US on one side is saying, "आ देखिए जरा किसमें कितना है दम." China is saying, "हम चाइना है तो क्या हुआ, डीप सीक वाले हैं." And India is saying, "मैं अटल हूँ, मैं स्वदेश हूँ." So I'm saying, that is going to be the big bhool bhulaiya that the investor has to navigate in 2025, whether it is, as I said, in the listed space or in the unlisted space, whether it's fixed income or equities. And I need I say anything about crypto? I think that. So I think, yeah, that's going to be the big, I would say, agility test quotient, and which is why I said this is the year of the snake.
Wow, that's great. Thanks for tuning into the third episode of Kotak Alt Waves. Stay tuned for more such insightful discussions on the world of investments.